there's a being called Zosh, and he's just like from everywhere. But the Hupaz is one from Zeta Reticuli. I like working with him.
Robert Shapiro is a practitioner of the New Age discipline known as channeling, in which alien or spirit entities speak to the rest of us through mediums.
All right, Hupaz speaking. Well, I will respond to questions.
Most people, especially scientists, don't give much credence to channeling. Anyone who talks with aliens on a regular basis must have a problem. It was the same back in the 1950s with the first of the so-called contactees, people like George Adamski, who claimed to have taken rides on spaceships with Venusians. To the scientific community, it's all one big mixed bag of specious claims, and that bag includes modern abduction reports, which remain controversial even in UFO circles.
And there are people who will swear on a stack of Bibles that it's true. Well, I don't know if it's true or not, but the evidence in support of it is terribly, terribly weak.
My problem with the whole way abductions are studied is that the hypnosis, very often hypnosis is used by people who are not trained to do that.
Somewhere between 25% and 35% or whatever of all the abduction cases are remembered without hypnosis. And every abduction case, virtually, people remember pieces of it without hypnosis.
Hopkins, perhaps more than any other person, has risked all, including his personal life and his health, in order to convince the world to sit up and take notice of abduction reports. Finally, his efforts appear to be paying off.
The thing that makes the UFO abduction phenomenon so powerful in that shift is that it kind of gets us where we live. It enters the physical world. It appears to be in the physical world, but once having found us in the physical world, it then drags us out of the physical world. So it is, it's like tailor-made to shatter the arrogance of the Western worldview.
Harvard psychiatrist John Mack has taken considerable heat from his colleagues because of his interest in abduction cases, but he's not deterred. Mack recognizes that many scientists simply refuse to believe abductions are real, no matter what.
There's a huge amount of physical evidence of what's going on in the abduction UFO world, but there has to be some openness of the receiver to that evidence. It requires, like as one Harvard scientist said, that, well, I have to have a cigarette lighter that was dropped from a UFO. Well, probably they gave up smoking hundreds of thousands of years ago anyway, but that kind of physical requirement, it's exactly that mentality that this is shifting us beyond.
Dr. Mack's entrance into the abduction debate makes it much tougher for science to dismiss the subject without looking at the data first. Those scientists who do investigate are often amazed at the scope and similarity of abductee tales.
There were beings around me. They were little short beings, but fairly chubby and heavy on the beings, and there was about 4 or 5 of them. And they were busy doing different things as I was laying on the table.
Mary has had similar experiences most of her life, so have other members of her family. Therein lies the central pattern of the abduction scenario. It begins during childhood, continues for decades, and seems to follow entire families.
What I remember is just like the bruises and stuff, and I always remember waking up thinking that I'd been somewhere but not knowing where I had been. But I remember seeing flying saucers.
Anderson has had a lifetime of UFO sightings, abduction experiences, missing time, and unexplained scars. The same was true of her mother, and is now true for her daughter.
The basic patterns are so narrowly similar over and over and over again that they simply preclude human fantasy as having been the cause.
There's a very strong physical component to this data, that a person who is abducted actually is missing from their normal environment during the abduction experience, and that people have multiple abductions. There are people abducted together at the same time who confirm each other's abductions, and some of those people may not be abducted themselves even. And we have independent people who see other people being abducted, and there's scars, right, scars on people's bodies and all sorts of other things. And any theory that explains the abduction phenomenon must take into account the physical aspect of it. And that is why we don't have a competing theory to the theory, in fact, that this is what's happening to people.
Dr. Jacques Fallet questions some abduction reports because they were recalled with hypnosis, but he's personally seen the physical effects of alien encounters.
There is impact on the skin. They do describe a hot sensation, but the beam would also pin them down and push them. And we don't know how to make a beam that does that.
Psychiatric social worker John Carpenter is another professional who's dared to look seriously at abductions.
You don't want to live with that. It is not a fun experience.
One of his cases involves a Nevada ranching family whose members have had unusual encounters for years.
Only come up to my shoulder, and slender, and dark-eyed.
What color hair?
No hair.
Mean eyes.
Cold. Looks like a dentist's office.
And what makes it look like a dentist's office?
Everything comes out of the walls. Hoses. I don't like it here.
Are you aware of how old you are?
I'm 14.
14.
Susan had a reason for being so certain of her age at the time.
Because they went between my legs. Nobody's ever done that.
Nobody had done that before.
No.
No. Since you couldn't move, how did they manage that?
I spread my legs.
There is no doubt in my mind there is a definite phenomenon occurring. Some kind of intervention, intrusion of some kind of different type of being, whether it's dimensional or extraterrestrial, whatever it is. There's nothing that binds these people together except the common amazing reports that they come up with.
Carpenter, Mack, Jacobs, and Hopkins have been taking their case to their colleagues, holding seminars around the country for mental health professionals, hoping to foster better understanding of abductee reports. The response has been modest but encouraging. Unfortunately, there are no answers to any of the big questions. Why is this happening? What do they want? Where will it all lead?
It certainly is a good question that why do they need us if they're so advanced? But then why do we need wildlife to do our research? Why do we have 2,000 lab rats? Why don't we just create our own animals? There has to be something to do with our spirit, our soul, our brains, something beyond maybe what they can manufacture in the lab.
It seems like they're interested also in a relationship with us, in some kind of joining with us.
We know infinitely more about this, infinitely more about it than we did 10 years ago. But we still have major gaps in our understanding because we cannot put ourselves in the minds of an alien intelligence with alien needs, non-human needs, and understand why they're doing and why they're choosing and why they're following people the way they seem to be doing.